What are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Either you are, or I'll be skipping rope with your entrails. Ta-ta.
This podcast is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Robots Radio. Games. Lore. Stories. Community. Just press play. Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the amazing universe of the Elder Scrolls.
You have freed the soul of Mentorna. Torment will be his. Endless agony is all he will know until the end of time. You have performed well, mortal. Perhaps you will be my servant again one day. Take this and use it well. Bring strife and discord with you wherever you may travel. Now, go!
Lotus, that was the voice of Molag Bal at the end of the questline in Skyrim when you get the Daedric weapon from him, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
He's a scary dude. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. That's Lotus. We're talking about Molag Bal today. And
we get a real creeper on the docket today.
A real creeper with content warning at the beginning, sexual assault, all forms of assault, any type of assault or torture or murder, any of that stuff. If that bothers you, then this is not the episode to listen to today.
Yeah, there's definitely a few things that if you bring them into a real world application out of the, creative writing fantasy aspect, this is a little triggery, I would imagine. So just be forewarned.
Really dark.
It's he is definitely like most of the time, this is one of the stereotypical, like overtly evil characters, and they do a real impressive job making it so that it's real hard to relate to Molag Bal on many levels.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard to relate to many of the Daedric Princes in some fashion or another, but
it's true. But like oftentimes you can find like, oh, well, there's this redeeming quality to offset it. Molag Bal's realm, as we'll get into, is almost all horrific things.
Yeah, it's like when they designed him as a character, they were like, all right, we need somebody that's just like evil incarnate.
Yes, we need a literal evil villain, like
right
through and through, just like what is a horrific demon, which is where we're going to kind of go.
Yeah, it's kind of some of the inspiration. So, so welcome everybody. We're talking about Molag Bal. This is we're all the way almost through the M's now of the Daedric Princes, and Molag Bal. Normally we go over all the names here. He has so many names, so many different ways that people know him or them. Daedric Princes aren't necessarily gendered, and in fact, many times people avoid actually saying Molag Bal, kind of like what's the freaking dude from Harry Potter? You can't say his name. Voldemort, where they just don't want to say his name.
Potter, but there you go. I did it. Nailed it.
You got it. Well, so sometimes people just avoid saying his name, so they just refer to him as things in order to avoid saying the name, because everybody just kind of gets it. I mean, he kind of does his thing uniquely compared to, of course, all the other Daedric Princes. So here's just a handful. You ready for this? Here we go. The God of Schemes, Harvester of Souls, Lord or Prince of Domination, Lord of Brutality, Dark Lord, Harvester, Lord of Corruption, Corrupter, Tormentor of Men, Lord of Troubles, Prince of Schemes, God of Brutality, Sower of Strife, the Scheming Lord of Coldharbor, the Prince of Murder, the King of Rape. That one you can attribute to Vivek, by the way. Domination and Elder Spirit of Domination and Supreme Law, Prince of Rage, Schemer Princess, which is interesting. Molag, the Slave Lord, the Prince of Pain, Captain of Corruption, Dark Father, Father of Vampires, Lord of the Undead, Father of Undeath, Defiler, Father of Torment, King of Corruption, Lord of Lies, Lord of Darkness, Dark Master. I was going to say Master of Darkness, but it's Dark Master. And Dread Lord. What? I mean, the dude's got like a huge resume. I don't know how you fit all of that onto one page.
Probably put Edge Lord onto all of that
Edge
too.
Lord.
Good Lord.
Yes. Look, this guy is like the heavy metal demon of the Elder Scrolls world. So so where do we even start, Lotus?
There's a lot to unpack with Molag Bal, as Molag Bal has also been featured in many of the games. And I guess, for the most current of them, was the original main antagonist for Elder Scrolls Online. He was the Soulburst questline, which was the original year one for the Elder Scrolls Online main story. And he was your main villain, causing the Dark Anchors. You actually go to Coldharbor, which is his realm, which we'll get into later on. But he's also had appearances in, I believe, every game except Arena, if I'm not... Well, every mainline game except Arena. He's not in Battlespire. Although they make reference to him in Battlespire in the Book of the Daedras.
Right. Yeah, and thank you, Chad, is also pointing this out. Molag Bal itself translates to Firestone.
Yep.
Just specifically Firestone. The name Molag Bal, if we get a little bit meta and we pull ourselves out of the lore and all the stuff that's going on with all these different names, the name Molag Bal actually comes from two biblical deities. So these were if you're familiar with the Old and New Testaments, in the Old Testament, oftentimes the main characters, I guess you could say, the Jewish people or the Hebrews, would come into conflict with other local deities or deities from other nearby cultures. In the Canaan Valley, the Canaanites worshipped a deity by the name of Malak, and another one by the name of Baal, which, if you put the two together, you get Molag Bal, Malak Bal. Malak is Moloch, and Bal is Bal. Bal, you'll notice, shows up a lot in other types of fantasies as being like a demonic character. And what's interesting about this is that there's some connection here to like the demonic nature of these things. So, for example, Malak is understood to be a god of sacrifice, somebody who you would kill people in order to worship. And the imagery of Malak is that of a bull with horns, and you've got kind of that demonic like horn head thing going on. Baal, strangely enough, although Baal is the one that I find to be more common in like references to demonic characters, was the god of weather, like fertility and vegetation. And the reason why the Hebrews thought he was evil was because he was a competing deity. Any deity that wasn't Yahweh or Elohim, God in the Old Testament, was by its very nature not their gods. They're therefore evil. But if you put the two together, then this is the sacrificial god of fertility and vegetation, which I think is really kind of funny. Yeah, it's really kind of funny. But that ties back into some of the imagery that's used. The idea of like this horned devil-looking character with like goat hooves and all of that kind of thing. A lot of that is drawn.
Molag Bal is definitely more bestial.
It's drawn from Christian mythology, really.
In the very stereotypical demonesque style. And back in game relating to the names too, you'll see a lot of other characters that have a tie-in to Molag Bal share parts of Bal's name as well. There's Lamia Bal, which I will touch on in relation to the vampire thing briefly, but and you know, that's more of a vampire thing, even though he's responsible for it, rather than just like having this turn into all of the episode about vampires.
Yeah, well, why don't we touch on that real quick?
Do we want to just touch on that and move past it?
Yeah, because a lot of people know the connection with Molag Bal and vampires. He's the father of vampires. He corrupted a woman, a virgin Nedic woman, in order to create the first vampire. And this is stuff that we learn in some of the extra content in Skyrim. The whatever that expansion was with the vampires. What was that called? Vampire expansion.
Dawnguard.
Dawnguard. There it is. So we know that he's responsible for the creation of vampires, that oftentimes servants of his will even seek him out in order to gain vampirism. And that is a blessing that he will bestow upon them. And there's all sorts of dark ways that happens. The darkest
the Coldharbor compact is really messed up.
Right. And the dark origin of this, and again, trigger warning, is that he raped the young woman, and that's the method which he converted her into a vampire.
Right. And on the pronunciation thing, it's Lamay, not Lamia. I think I said Lamia, which is actually like the snake people.
Yeah.
Different thing. Lamay Bal.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't need to go into that too much. I talked about that on the vampire episode.
So that's a little more in depth on that. But yeah, he's just the creation of that whole thing. And the name, again, is sometimes shared. And another tie-in, just name recognition wise, is in Elder Scrolls Online. There's the siege of the Imperial City that's currently going on, where it's burning the Imperial Library. Daedra are running amok throughout the Imperial City and all that. And while there's a battle going on in the White Gold Tower, one of the enemies you encounter is Molag Kina, which is another servant of Molag Bal. I actually forget the direct, is it his daughter maybe?
Yeah, it's something like that.
I forget the familiar relationship off the top of my head. But either way, another tie-in, not sharing the Bal name, but in this situation, sharing the Molag name type of thing.
Right. So, which I guess is just fun for creativity's sake. I don't know the reason why you would have Molag
one
or
name
Bal
or the other name. Yeah,
right.
Do Daedric Princes have surnames and such?
Yes, I don't know. But yeah, we've got that going on. The thing that we need to know the most about, I guess the thing that we need to focus the most on with Molag Bal is the fact that he's all about what he can get away with when it comes to torture and corruption and
domination is such a main focus. It's just to literally control the aspects of those he would consider lesser than himself or
which
whatever.
Is all mortals.
We're mortals, and again, it's sort of like this desire to. We've mentioned the kind of spheres that the different Daedric princes fall into, and it's this obsessive need to dominate like everything, which leads to being a good villain when you're trying to essentially invade a world where everyone's theoretically at your disposal to be dominated if all goes well. Right.
So let's divide this up in like a few topics here. We've got the domination, the subjugation, the corruption of mortals, and then we have his competition with the other Daedric princes, which we'll get to a little bit later. Now, Lotus, you know me. I get some of these crazy theories and ideas, and this one isn't a crazy theory or idea, but it is what occurred to me today in going through the lore and kind of researching this a little bit more was a deeper understanding into why he is so keen on undeath. For somebody who wants to corrupt and torture and dominate, you also, like, the natural assumption is murder is also on that list, right? And it is sometimes, but he is less about actually killing things, because once you murder somebody, you can no longer dominate them. You are 100% have dominated them and you are finished. There is no more to their story at all. And it occurred to me that the best way to continue corrupting and dominating somebody is to make sure that they don't die, is to keep them alive. So the curse of vampirism is in its sense the essence of that. Let's keep them alive so that they can continue to suffer through this affliction that they have for eternity. And even if things do die, then let's bring them into his land, his part of oblivion, Coldharbor, and let's continue to dominate them, because the souls that get brought into Coldharbor, oftentimes if they give in to him, will be turned into things like bone golems and these other creatures, which are going to be dominated for the rest of eternity.
Right.
So that's why he's into undeath. He just doesn't want to stop enjoying his domination and corruption of his subjects.
Sure. That totally makes sense, where it's just like, okay, you just eternally get to suffer, because then I never get bored because I always have playthings.
Right. Or if, like we've speculated about this before, there's some sort of control, there's some sort of benefit that these princes get from being able to enact their influence over mortals. And we've speculated before that maybe it has something to do with their spirits when they die, and we've got many episodes where we've kind of talked about that. But in this case, it's almost like the domination of the mortals themselves is the end game. Like, that is the end. That's why he wanted to invade Tamriel and pull it into Coldharbor, was so that he could have eternal control and domination over everything all the time. So that's kind of where my mind goes with that. And so therefore, everybody who is immortal is naturally very afraid of him, because he's not like some of the other Daedric princes who, like Boethia, is just done with you, right? Like, Boethia is kind of similar in a certain amount of like rebellion and power, but Boethia is like, all right, well, I'm just going to kill you, and now you're dead. All done, right? But when it comes to Molag Bal, it's like, nope, the story's not that quick. He's going to make sure that you are basically going to suffer forever if he has his way with you. Right. So anyway, that's just one of those things that I'd come up with today, looking at all of how this works in relation to mortals. But then there's the side of him that we have to look at, where it has to do with his relationship to other Daedric princes. And there are a few that he stands juxtaposed with that are absolutely like, he doesn't get along with them at all, which makes sense. Yeah, he's got some enemies. So I mentioned Boethia, right? Boethia makes sense. They have kind of this ongoing rivalry, and it makes actually this ties into the lore from the Dark Elves, the Dunmerry people, the Houses of Troubles, and all of those things. Boethia is one of the good Daedric princes. Molag Bal is one of the House of Troubles. He stands against them, and so that right there is conflict. You have anything you want to throw in about that?
No, I mean, I guess kind of in the degree of like, it's just interesting because, like, I guess when you're oftentimes referring to the different Daedra, which, we do oftentimes, one thing that is just interesting, because when we were discussing, the different anticipations and stuff like that in other episodes, and the good Daedra according to Dunmer, a lot of times we even mention, it's like, the concept of like good to them is like, oh wow, that's weird, because it's still pretty brutal oftentimes. But in this situation, it's almost like two different sides of this brutality, where one of them is just like, nah, this is super screwed up, as opposed to this is strife that you're overcoming or something like that. Whereas is kind of interesting that there's that differentiation, where theoretically in other literature or writings or whatever, either of these characters could be considered evil, But in this one, it's kind of like, yeah, not so much. And actually, as Rob just pointed out, as I wanted to get to, it's one of those situations where it's like kind of the rebel and the king type of thing. And the big one that I wanted to get into is actually not so much Boethia, but I probably next on the list, which we'll be getting into, which you'd normally consider another super devil demon in the series, which is ironic that, again, bitter rivals with Dagon.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's Dagon. Before we move on to that, though, one other little note, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this because this is a huge rabbit trail, but in the Lessons of Vivec Sermon 14, it is claimed that he or they had children with Vivec. Yeah. Which is super nuts and created like mutant creatures. And there's this is a very Kirkbridean thing.
It's very Kirkbridean. And it goes on and on and on. And actually a lot of the 36 lessons are related to the slaying of all these horrific little monster children.
Yeah. So if you want to fall down that hole, you're welcome to. Maybe we'll do a whole other episode about that and more of what's going on there.
That's much more 36 lessons. I mean, it involves Molag Bal, but it's very 36 lessons, which is in and of itself its own beast.
Right. But puzzle for yourself a little bit here. Molag Bal and Vivec getting together, making babies. Super weird. But okay, let's move on. So you brought up another Daedric Prince. You brought up Mehrunes Dagon.
Yes.
And
which
the conflict between the two of them.
Because related back to the visual style of them, when you think Mehrunes Dagon, it's very stereotypical, like devil, demon, hellscape that it's in, but it's totally in a different direction from Molag Bal. And interestingly enough, based on what we were just talking about with the Dunmer, Mehrunes Dagon's also part of the House of Troubles, but is opposed to one of the others in the House of Troubles, which is kind of fascinating to think about, where it's just like even the evil entities, quote unquote, well, actually less quotes around Molag Bal, just evil. More quotes around Dagon is a little more ambiguous there, I could say. Even they're at each other's throats just because of the ideological differences they have in their spheres, so to speak.
Right. And what's interesting is that they're both, I find them both to be similar in iconography and the way that they look. They both have a kind of a demonic vibe going. Mehrunes Dagon's definitely got more of that like Goro, big dude with multiple arms thing.
Correct.
But there's still that demonic quality to him, and especially his realm. Coldharbor tends to have a very cool color palette. It seems to be very dark and blue and kind of purpley, whereas Molag Bal's realm, it's like fire and brimstone, which...
No, the other way around.
I'm sorry. Mehrunes Dagon's realm is like fire and brimstone. You are correct.
Yes. That.
Again, I truncate all of these names. MB... MD, I just shorten everything in my brain. And we were joking about this in the pre-show. The other one that it specifically butts up against is Meridia. Now, I would consider these three to be the ones that are the most in conflict with him. And Meridia, because of this reverie for life, the sanctity of life and its energies and those kinds of things.
This fanatical opposition to the undead.
Right. So you have one who's going to basically destroy life, or corrupt, I guess is the best way to put it. Corrupt life.
It's not so much destroying it, it's corrupting it and enslaving it. And he doesn't even necessarily want it gone. It's just he wants utter control of it and to ruin it.
Right. Whereas Meridia is like, no, life is precious. You can't do that. And there's, conflict between them in the stories. We talked a little bit about this during the Meridia episode. So
which is interesting because of her, just like a quick side note before we move past Meridia. One thing we were talking about the fact that it's like, with Dagon and Bal, it's like, it's interesting that they're so opposed to each other, because actually one of the things that Prof brought up in chat that I specifically really liked, whereas that concept of Dagon having like that overthrowing and like the idea of hope as well, just because destruction of something that's been established can bring hope to those that need that revolution. So it's kind of neat because that's a big opposition to permanent enslavement. Well, that's going against the idea of like being able to overthrow that. So that's kind of cool that they're at odds. But the reason I wanted to just mention the Meridia thing is, even though there's the life aspect to Meridia where she's opposed to the undead, she's very much against free will. It's kind of funny that they also share this weird sort of domination thing, because she really is not, there is no questioning Meridia. It's you do as she says, and her Aurorans are creepy. So it is kind of interesting that they both kind of share that aspect, even though they're at odds with each other. A little different, obviously, but it's funny the overlap in with two that seem at the surface level more opposed to each other, and then two that look kind of similar have kind of like a deeper reason that they don't sync up.
Yeah. It's almost like they're siblings. They're like they're cut from the same cloth, but they disagree about how you treat life. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
There's a similarity there. And then we also have conflict between Molag Bal with the Daedric spirits, Arkay, and similar to Meridia, Arkay's love of life and against the undead and that kind of thing is obviously a place of strife between them. And then Stendar's another one that Molag Bal kind of stands in opposition against. But unlike the Daedric Princes, the Daedric Princes are a little bit less active in the world. So you get a little bit less of that like one-on-one thing, and more of like the followers of these people really don't like Molag Bal. Then you get a little bit more of that, like the priests of Arkay and that kind of thing. So yeah, so there's a lot we could dive into with this stuff. Just like any of these other Daedric Prince episodes, we could go on about him for like 2 hours, but these are more the deeper but still overview kind of episodes. Anything else you want to point out before we move on?
No, I think that pretty well uncovers the I don't know, adversarial side of Molag Bal. I mean, Molag Bal doesn't tend to get along with many in general. These are kind of more, we just touched on the overt enemies of Molag Bal, but you don't see a lot of collaborations with Molag Bal. As much as the princes occasionally will work together, Molag Bal's usually doing his own thing, being sketchy off to the side.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing. Well, here, why don't we take a quick break? We'll thank our patrons. We'll come back and we'll cover the artifacts and some other fun little bits of info. So don't go anywhere.
This is Miss Molag, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, so here we are in the middle of the show. Yeah, the chat's going on because Vile is buddied up with old.
That's true. There's
a number of pairings up that happen throughout. I mean, you've got multiple ages of the world to go over here.
Sure.
And there are a number of events where he temporarily pairs up with somebody else. Usually that doesn't last very long. But anyway, here we are in the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, and we have some new ones this week. Got to shout out Ben F., Stephen P., and Matthew A. Thank you so much for signing up on the Patreon. It's a new month. We're in July. We're at the beginning of the month of July, and our patrons kind of shift and change over time. We've dropped just below that 100 mark again. We're back to 99. And some people just kind of sign up for getting the old episodes, and then they go away, and that's totally fine. But yeah, if you're interested in helping out the show, want to support us, want to join us for future episodes, or be called out like our Daedric Princes, Mr. Gummy Boy, Kira, and Noodle Al Dente, and Riverwood Chicken. You can't forget Riverwood Chicken. Then go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. And all the different things you can get, including t-shirts. I got another notification that t-shirts are going out again to some of our patrons. And so look in your mail, friends. You might see a new Daedric Prince t-shirt show up pretty soon. And I think we're getting closer to the end of the year of that first set of 4 t-shirts, which means I need to design some new t-shirts soon to make sure that you guys have more stuff to get. So I'll get on that. But thank you to everybody for your support. We really do appreciate it. Also, we have a new review to read. Here it goes. This one's from, this name is amazing, Lotus. How do you pronounce? You want to try pronouncing this? Here, I'll spell it. GFHHHHJJGFFF.
Groff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that weird, like somebody threw a football at you, but you weren't paying attention. It hits you right in the gut.
Yeah, I was thinking like you just got punched in the stomach. This is the sound of getting punched in the stomach.
Did you ever see that Simpsons clip with Hans Moleman and that football just hits him in his junk and he just falls over?
Hans Moleman is the best character on The Simpsons. You call that a knife? This is a knife. Down I go. That's my favorite quote. He's also one of the ones that will regularly say when something really wacky happens and like it affects the whole town, you'll see him and he'll go, "Not again." Yep. I love that. Anyway, maybe I should read this review in a Hans Moleman. No, that would take forever. So thank you so much from the US who wrote a treat for new and old fans alike, 5 stars. I've been playing Elder Scrolls since Oblivion and immediately fell in love with the world. I consider myself a lore buff, but Robots and Lotus have poured into every obscure detail and found many things I've missed. Their presentation of the lore is entertaining, engaging, and easy to understand. Highly recommended for any fan of the franchise. I had an interaction with Lotus on Tales of Tribute, and even though he beat me somewhat badly, he was cordial and friendly, and we had a great discussion afterwards. I have not yet had the chance to encounter Robots one-on-one, but I'm sure he'd be just as inviting. 11 out of 5 stars. Would recommend the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Thank you so much. Yeah, dude, like join our Discord. Get on here. We're gonna set up sometime in the next few weeks. We'll set up a big Tales of Tribute competition, and you're welcome to come play with us in our guilds. So yeah,
that's really awesome. I actually didn't realize that this was from them at first because I hadn't read the review yet. I actually had sent you the screenshot of like that. It was like, hey, somebody recognized me. Lorecast listener. yeah. It's always cool when we see you guys out in the wild. But yeah, I mean, the amount of you that have found me in Tales of Tribute, I apparently I always joke that it's kind of surreal when any of you that listen say hi in game, and in various applications, whether it's PvP or whatever. The amount of people that I have run into in Tales of Tribute is like wild on PlayStation. Oh, that's cool. My name. So apparently that's where everybody's chilling at the moment. So. Well, my name when I play my how it shows your character name, but then it has your account name. Most of the time you only see the account name. I changed my player name to Robots Radio just in case people wanted to recognize me more. But you still see the account name. The account name for mine on PC is Robots with zeros for O's, and it's all lowercase except for this. So it's like lowercase R, uppercase O, lowercase B, uppercase what looks like uppercase O because it's a big zero. Yeah. So I'm not super recognizable. I could totally get how people would see that name and not necessarily know it was me. But if you do see a Robots with zeros in a Tales of Tribute game, that's this guy. And if you beat me, send me a note and say, "Ha, I beat you." Anyway, that's what we got for the middle of the show. Thank you everybody for your support and for leaving ratings and reviews on all the platforms. It really does help us maintain and continue to grow an audience. We really appreciate that. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, dear child of cities. That is why the Night Mother loves you.
And we love you too. Oh. All right. Well, that is in contrast to Molag Bal, because I don't think he knows what love is at all. No. That became a song lyric because it rhymed. I'm going to have to write a song about Molag Bal. Perfect. All right, let's talk artifacts. I know this is your favorite thing. I hinted at the beginning with the voice line about the mace of Molag Bal, that's the way you get it in Skyrim, which is terrifying and terrible because of the things you do to that poor guy. You want to start with that, or should we save that for later?
All right. So this is kind of an interesting one because this always is my favorite part of the Daedric Princes, where a lot of this, because it's very in-gamey, so like that's usually more of my go-to. Ironically enough, I think the Mace of Molag Bal's design is very, very cool. I really like the way it looks. You can, look it up on the UESP, or it's in many of the different games. But it's never the most useful. It's fine, but the Mace of Molag Bal, it's also known as the Vampire's Mace. Its enchantment drains the stamina and magicka of its victims and transfers it to the wielder. It's also been known to have the ability to transfer the enemy's strength to its wielder or trap their soul. So that's pretty handy because it's like you don't have to cast soul trap in game. You can just smack them with this thing. Yeah, that's pretty handy. It gives you resources back, which is fine. Again, not super noteworthy. It's also been said to be a great weapon for vanquishing wizards, which kind of makes sense because you can drain basically all of their magicka and they can't cast spells at you, which makes life substantially easier.
Yeah, definitely.
But in general, it's got an orcish style to it. So many legends surround the mace, but the origins can be traced back to when Molag Bal deceived an orcish blacksmith and enslaved them in the pits of Coldharbor. The blacksmith was turned into a soul shriven and forced to forge the mace, hence the orcish. It's not orc, but like it's not necessarily orcish, but it definitely has that orcish feel to it. That just it's in like the design.
A blend of like Daedric and Orsimer like kind of styles,
very much similar in style to like the orcish / Dwemer type of feel to Volendrung as well.
Yeah,
it's got like an in-world thing and an out-of-world thing to it. It's definitely got that type of feel, if that makes sense.
Right. I just like the fact that this is like a vampire in weapon form, in a way.
Yes,
like it sucks things out of people and into you. And there's just something about that I've always thought was cool.
So, yeah, that's I would probably say the best of the weapons, which isn't saying much.
I know you would think with like him being so dark and evil that he might have some better weapons to give us.
Most of his artifacts kind of suck.
How do you really feel?
So the next one I want to tackle, which is, it's weird. I think it sounds awesome, and maybe that's why I'm less impressed, because it sounds like it'd be really cool, and it's really whatever. Mm-hmm. But the Mortem Vivicus, that is just a creepy name. Like, I think that sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
But it's supposedly a powerful weapon created by Molag Bal, but it's a massive spell that was capable of holding and harnessing thousands of souls and could destroy all of Tamriel when it was released, but it had no physical form, instead appearing as a large cold light. It was originally given as a gift to the...
Yeah.
What's that?
It was like an orb. It was like an orb.
Yeah, it's like a big orb. Yeah, it's like a big bluish white orb.
Right.
And it was originally given to the Ayleid king, Anumeril,
of Abarglass.
Abagarless. It's
there we go.
Abagarless. That's how I think that's how you pronounce it.
Nailed it.
Yeah. But it's like it's Bal's ball, exactly.
Well, here, real quick, we didn't point out the connection to the Ayleids. That is another thing that's worth pointing out here. The Ayleids worshipped Molag Bal, and
correct.
And you can see in some of the things that Gut Gardens, that they learned a few things from Molag Bal as well. So this weapon, although it wasn't really a wieldable weapon, it was like a powerful spell, seems related to some of that worship and connection back in the time of the Ayleids.
But it's since it's kind of not so much a thing as like a metaphorical thing. I don't know. It's one of those things that sounds like, oh, I could destroy all of Tamriel, but it's just this like floating sphere thing that theoretically is holding souls. But it's like, Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds neat, I guess.
This is one of those concepts that came about because of Elder Scrolls Online and like a story plot point, but didn't really get fleshed out in any of the other Elder Scrolls games.
Exactly.
As like a wieldable weapon or anything like that.
Yeah, that's why I think it falls a little flat, where maybe if it was more fleshed out, it would have more to it.
Right. Well, we can move on from that one because there's really not a whole lot to say about it without getting into the whole storyline where
and to be fair, a lot of these won't have an awful lot about them, which is why it's like he's so prominent. It's kind of weird that there's really not.
Well, he doesn't want to give anybody any means of fighting back against him.
I guess that's true. He wants to limit what you're getting, because there's also, we'll just go to the next one we'll cover is the Crown of Bones.
Which again, a cool name, Crown of Bones.
But it doesn't even have a picture. It's literally not even
right.
There's no photo of it even. So it's like, but it was created by Molag Bal for the Admiral of the Lost Fleet. It was a crown allowed the wearer to control the skeleton sailors whose ships were dragged into the maelstrom of Bal.
And this is another one of those ESO story points where we don't actually get the item.
Correct.
As far as I know, you don't actually come across the item.
You do not. If the Admiral of the Lost Fleet specifically, if you're interested in this, this is the storyline to Blackheart Haven. Is, I believe that's what this is referring to, which it's one of the base game dungeon storylines. So that's there. If you
kind of
have interest in seeing the storyline, you can go to my YouTube. It's the whole thing is there, actually, if you don't even want to play it. It's a pretty cool storyline, to be fair, but the reason that the artifact kind of is lacking, you literally never see it. This is all tangentially dealing with the people afflicted by this curse.
Right. I wonder if, and I think it would be really cool now that they're in pre-production for Elder Scrolls 6, that we don't get to see some of these items that in the time between Elder Scrolls Skyrim and all these years that they've been working on ESO, where they've been adding into the lore, and all of these things have been added into the lore that existed or affected things usually in the second era, but sometimes in the past, because they'll do those little mind warp things where somebody can see into the past or whatever. But they've got all this history now built with all of these other artifacts and things. It would be really cool to see things like the Crown of Bones or the Mortem Vivicus show up in Elder Scrolls 6.
Right. And then continuing on with more, but most of this is going to be
more story artifacts. We'll just call them story artifacts.
Yeah, it really is, because most of this also takes place in Coldharbor. These are just fragments of worlds kind of ripped into Coldharbor. There's the Harvest Hearts, which are artifacts that Molag Bal used to enslave large communities and power specific parts of his divine portfolio, which is a very interesting way of putting that. That's from the UESP specifically. But this comes about during the plane meld. The vestige, destroyed the heart within a portion of Coldharbor known as the Orchid, and it's
Orchard. An orchid is a single flower.
The orchard.
An orchard is a lot of flowers.
Which is what do you call it? It's this vampire graveyard thing. We don't really need to go too much into this because it's its own storyline, again, pretty good as well. So it's just later on in the Coldharbor section of
Maybe we should
ESO.
Make a mental note of which of these stories we should go back and flesh out in more detail, because it would be fun to kind of dive into some of the details.
So far, the majority of these are the Crown of Bones, the Mortem Vivicus, the Harvest Hearts, all are quest lines in ESO. They're directly related to that.
Stones of Coldfire.
So
again, cool name.
Cool name. And the 7 Stones of Coldfire are artifacts that were gifted directly to Molag Bal, or from Molag Bal, and distributed throughout the Daedric ruins of Vardenfell that were dedicated to the Lord of Lies. These stones hold the power to summon and compel Daedra. They were used during the interregnum by Mistress Dratha to make a deal with the Norma named Zinkayez, I believe is how you pronounce that.
Zykanez?
Yeah.
Zykanez?
Yeah, I think in game they might actually say that as Zinkayas, but Zinkanai.
It's spelled with an N. Yeah,
it's an
X.
N, yeah.
These Dremora always have X's and Y's. And
the
things
X's and Y's.
X Y K E N A Z.
Yeah, Zinkanaz. Well, whatever. It's to prolong her life. That's what happens. The stones were located at
Ashalmawai.
Perfect. Balor. Oh my lord. These are Daedric ruins.
Let's try this. Esutanimus.
Okay.
Kushtashpi. Ramimilk. Rami milk.
Rami milk.
And Yansuramus. And Tusenend.
Those were wonderfully stated.
There you go.
Names.
They're all just locations around Vardenfell.
Yes, they are. Those are Daedric ruins around Vardenfell, again, in ESO. And again, they're black stones with like this weird blue swirl, like blue flames in them. And that's it.
That's about it.
That's really
go play ESO. All right. And then there's one more.
There is one more. And it's the vampiric shards. You want to cover the vampiric shards?
Yeah, I mean, this is another ESO thing. So the vampiric
shards, another ESO thing.
So we'll just cover it real quick. The vampiric shards are foul relics that corrupt whatever they come in contact with. When the Saxleal village of Haj Uxith was brought to Coldharbor, Molag Bal gave the Argonians one of these crystals to keep their hist alive. It was the only thing sustaining the hist in Coldharbor's inhospitable soil. Over time, the shard poisoned the hist. The hist was dying, and the shard kept it from passing, forcing it to endure constant torment.
Beautiful.
It goes back to the whole undying thing, keeping things alive. Like, why would he help them out and keep the hist alive? So he could freaking torture it forever.
So he could torture it for all eternity.
Right.
And again, this is you will find the Argonian Zanmir in Coldharbor in ESO. There's this Argonian village that they're referring to with this dying hist. It's another portion of the Coldharbor zone in Elder Scrolls Online, and that's the extent of this artifact as well.
Yeah. So those are the artifacts. Not a whole lot of super interesting stuff if you're looking for things you can wield in the games.
But they kind of, without sounding like super dismissive, outside the Mace of Molag Bal as a Daedric artifact, the rest of them seem like story MacGuffins, really. And that's pretty much the extent of their existence. They have their one quest they relate to, and that's pretty much the extent of anything you deal with them.
Right. You know what'd be really cool is, so there's different origins for artifacts. Sometimes the artifacts are crafted by a Daedric Prince. Sometimes they're crafted by somebody in service of the Daedric Prince. It would be really cool to get an artifact that somebody who was being like enslaved by Molag Bal used, like was able to siphon off some of the power or something in order to create an artifact to fight against Molag Bal, in order to try to break enslavement, you know?
Yep.
And he would still be like wielding the power of Molag Bal, like, because maybe they were like in close servitude with Molag Bal or some of Molag Bal's other, you know, realm or whatever.
Sure.
Some source of power. I'm sure they can come up with a reason, right? But then like that would be like a weapon that was specifically tuned to fight against Molag Bal, but also came from, or maybe it was like a piece of Molag Bal's like horns or claws or something like that, like turned into a weapon.
Right.
That would be really, really cool. There you go. Elder Scrolls 6 team. There's your idea for the week.
You can have that one.
You can have that idea. Yeah, just name it the Robot's Blade or something, which doesn't make any sense.
No, that's very lore friendly.
Name.
Doesn't sound like it's coming from Fallout at all.
It's a bad name. It's a very bad name. Okay, don't do that. But if you do use the idea, let me know. Just give me a little nod. Just be a little. All right.
Name it something else and then just put a winky face at the end. We'll know what it means.
With a winky face. Molag's pain razor. Winky face.
Winky face.
All right. So we've covered all the main stuff. You want to talk about some other funny little things? I mean, there's a lot of other things we could cover in this episode, but I think it's time to move on. So this is a fun little note. Molag Bal in Daggerfall. Do you remember what color he was?
Isn't he green?
He's green.
Yeah.
He's a big old green looking like demon guy with hooves, which is cool.
He kind of looks like he belongs in Doom.
Yeah, he's kind of got like that Doom bad guy vibe going on.
It looks for a gauge. Again, you can go to the UESP if you want to see him. His little animated GIF is there. It makes me think of the Hell Barons. From Doom or Doom 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the state of the world back then. I mean, Doom was huge back when they were working on Daggerfall.
Yeah, he definitely has that vibe going to him.
Yeah, I totally get that. Here, let's talk about the voice actors. So there's two different voice actors. The one that voiced the stuff from Skyrim is different from the voice actor in Elder Scrolls Online. The voice you heard at the beginning is Christopher Corey Smith, and ESO's voice actor for Molag Bal is Malcolm McDowell. And some of these names you've heard before because of doing other things. The filmography for Christopher Corey Smith is pretty substantial. There's a lot of like animated types of stuff. Bleach is one that a lot of people would recognize. Ghost in the Shell. And these are minor characters, medical student, homeless man, things like that. But a very long list of things every year, starting in like 2003 up until current time. So most of this stuff is like anime and then other types of animation, a little bit of film work, and then video games. And the video game list starts with Spider-Man in 2000. He does a bunch of like superhero type stuff. X-Men's Revenge. He played Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse Colossus, and Soldiers. And then you get to the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, where he was only Molag Bal. Sometimes these actors end up doing other characters as well.
Yep.
Just Molag Bal. And then has continued to do lots of video game stuff ever since then. Very, very prolific voice actor. You'll probably recognize the voices, if you play enough different games, watch enough different anime, those kinds of things, you'll see him popping up over and over again. Malcolm McDowell is interesting because Malcolm McDowell was in A Clockwork Orange. Did you know that? 1971.
Wow.
Yeah. Clockwork Orange, Fallout 3 as John Henry Eden. It's another important one. Games like God of War 3, Silent Hill. But then, for the most part, our audience would recognize him as Molag Bal in the Elder Scrolls Online. And you hear a lot of Molag Bal in the Elder Scrolls Online because every time one of those dark anchors fall down and Molag Bal taunts you, that's Malcolm McDowell's voice. So always fun to go into the voice actors. You guys can look those up and see if there's any other games or shows or whatever that you're familiar with. Let's see, anything else to note here? I'm just kind of looking through the rest of the notes. I think we covered everything else, but most of it kind of came up with in the conversations that we've already had. Do you have any other final thoughts?
No, I was going to say, for a good gauge, you never really attend Coldharbor itself, the realm, outside of Elder Scrolls Online. But one thing that I actually just thought was kind of interesting about Coldharbor is it's supposedly like... It's as an idea, because all sorts of realms of Oblivion are have their own formation, and they usually tie into the Daedric Prince. One thing that I just think is kind of cool about his realm specifically that I kind of wanted to just mention is I like the fact that it's supposedly like a mirror image of Tamriel itself, except basically his corrupted, dominated version of it.
Right. Like he's like creating a model of what he wants to happen.
Exactly. It's like, this is what I want to do if I can like basically get this plane meld to go off. So it's just like, I really feel like it's a blueprint of what he hopes he could actually do. And he just manifested it into his actual realm. Yeah.
Like his little test run before he actually.
Right. Which as a realm is kind of interesting, that it's just like, it's essentially just crappy version of the real version of Tamriel.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of unique to him specifically, because unless I'm forgetting something, it's really, that actually makes it kind of unique to all of the other realms, which are very different and usually like some type of manifestation of the Daedric Prince. And ironically, a beat up dominated version of just what you play in game is kind of just what his ideal realm is. So it's just kind of like a cruddy version of the game you already play. Oh, that's his realm.
Yeah. Elder Scrolls 6 taking place only in Coldharbor. It's just like, why is this guy always blue? Because this is crappy Tamriel.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
We have Tamriel at home, and then you just go home to Coldharbor.
It's Molag Bal's version. Molag Bal, can we have our get a Tamriel? We have Tamriel at home already.
We have Tamriel at home. That's just Coldharbor.
That's just your crappy version, Mom.
Yeah. So yeah,
shut up. We'll be there soon. Stay buckled up.
So that was really the only thing I specifically wanted to just add at the end. There's not a lot to say about his realm other than that.
Yeah.
But it's what kind of I find makes his realm a little distinct from the others.
Mm-hmm. So there's one other concept, and I'm not going to dive into it, but I just definitely want to nod to it. The concept of the Ruddy Man. We didn't talk about that title.
No, we didn't.
And the Ruddy Man occurs in two different places in connection to the Dunmer and Vivek, and then also to the Reachman. And they're two different things. Supposedly, they are not the same reference, even though they both are references to Molag Bal, but They're not referencing the same exact events. It's like the names co-evolved in their own ways based on interpretations of what was going on at the time in two different locations.
Which is weird because that's something that happens in the real world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of neat that that's in the story as well.
Yes.
Like that's been crafted that type of thing happens, because that's almost like a real world event that you wouldn't expect to be written into a fictional thing. Like
when it's fictional, it seems like a mistake because it seems like an author mistake, but like you said, it happens in the real world. So, and a student of author would know that.
Right. So, and that's another thing that's just because of the unreliable narrator and the way that a lot of the Elder Scrolls has formed as a series, you get a lot of things that are not super common in fantasy worlds.
In fiction.
Because, yeah, exactly. In fiction, because it's just the way things are passed down, you don't have definitive answers a lot of the time in this series, which is odd because there is kind of no omnipotent narrator to direct you. It's just like, well, no, this story is from this culture or this group of people, or this person won, so here's their interpretation of history, which happens in real life. So it's oddly parallels how history and stories are passed on in real life.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So maybe we'll do an episode on the Ruddy Man and the two different versions of that in the future. That's another one to kind of stick a feather in our cap. Get back to it later. That almost
seems like that would go along with the 36 lessons if we get into that, and the many horrific little children spawn of them as well.
All right.
I feel like that would be a project in and of itself. That would not fit into the last 4 minutes we have for the show.
No, absolutely not. But we'll get around to that stuff eventually. There's just so much to cover in Elder Scrolls lore, and we've been doing this for years now, and we're still not anywhere near the end. So, so stay tuned for that in the future. Lotus, do you have anything going on you want to share? How's Tales going? Tales
is going well. As always, just kind of continuing with the events. Really been enjoying High Isle, although, I've made no bones about, I think this might be my favorite expansion to the game yet. I really, really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But I have had so many technical problems with it.
Really?
Wow. I actually have not encountered a portion of the game that is not broken. Not a single portion, which is very frustrating.
I think I had one hiccup on one quest that just kind of stalled out.
We've had to
once.
actually stop doing things with my group because they're so unplayable.
Is this in dungeons and trials and
It's
stuff?
everything. Literally
Really?
everything.
Really?
There's no portion of the game that works 100% correctly anymore, which is very frustrating because all I want to do, because I love the expansion so much, is play it more. But achievements are broken, rankings are broken, quests are broken, world bosses are broken, dungeons are broken, trials are broken.
Yeah, we got together with the guild. We did have an issue with the world boss.
Yeah, and it's nothing is, and the big thing that I've been saying, nothing is game breaking, but each of them adding up has been very frustrating as a whole.
Right. Like, it makes you want to pause and come back later.
Correct. It's just been a lot of little things. Honestly, none of them are that big of a deal. But the fact that everything we do kind of has something that on the bright side, we've also found ways around some of the stuff. Mm-hmm. But just needing to account for that has been frustrating because, like I said, I love the High Isle expansion. So all I want to do is spend my free time playing it.
Right.
And when you run into stuff like that, it's like, oh God, so do I be aggravated, but also keep playing because it's fun, or do I stop, but then I'm jonesing to play it more? Like, it's this weird balance, which we just got a patch on PlayStation. So hoping that some of that works out to patch it, because I know PC got a patch a little sooner than us, as you got the expansion sooner than us.
Pretty common.
So hopefully that corrects some of the issues at least, because so far I will say, that stuff aside, I love High Isle. And I've had way more fun with the card game than I expected. I'm not great at it, but
I like the zone. I like the card game. I
love the zone.
The story's been fun
so much. And the events in the zone and the world bosses in the zone, they're so good. There are a lot of, the new trial is great.
The way the island is designed and the rocks come out of the water, and the fact that you can come across these rock formations that were placed by ancient cultures that are part of this, and you just kind of come across them as you're running across the landscape. There's a lot of cool little hidden bits, I feel in the design of the world, which is really cool. So I agree. I think it's they're getting and we've talked about this for years. Every time they release a new zone, it seems it's cooler than the last one.
Right. And this one, I just feel all aspects of it hit exactly what I was kind of looking for, even if I didn't know I was looking for it in a couple aspects. So I've really been enjoying it despite the technical issues that I've had. I guess that speaks even more to it, because it's that hasn't even dampened it that much in the grand scheme of things. But I'm going away this weekend to the beach. So I believe Ark and Promethean, who has actually returned to Tales last episode, which was great because he hasn't been on in forever. I think they might be attempting to host a show, even though I'm away this weekend. Hopefully all works out. But I was going to say, if you're ever interested in the other show that I do, which is much more just topics of discussion in Elder Scrolls as a whole, as Tales of Tamriel. But other than that, just kind of been playing and enjoying the new expansion now that we've got it.
Nice. Yeah, so I've got my stuff, robotsradio.net, for all of my shows. If you're into Fallout, there's the Fallout Lorecast. If you're into Lord of the Rings, there's the Lord of the Rings Lorecast. If you're into doing podcasts or want to learn more about doing podcasts, then you can join us as part of the Rocket Club, where I work with other creators and help them launch their shows and make sure that they're able to build audiences and create the best kind of show they possibly can. If you don't want to sign up for that, there's a book I wrote about podcasting. All of that stuff can be found at robotsradio.net. And my other side project I'm working on is I've been writing more music, and I will be releasing bulks of music, basically sets of EPs. The first 3 are going to be lo-fi, and they're going to be copyright free. You can use them on stream. You can do whatever you want with them. You can listen to them on Spotify. You can add them to your playlists. You can do all those kinds of things. So I'm working on getting that stuff launched in the next few weeks. The first EP will be up. I'll be putting more music online as time goes by, and eventually just kind of building out a catalog for people to use for streaming and doing all sorts of other things. So that's all under Robots Radio. It's going to be on Robots Radio is the name of the band on Spotify. So I was like, easy to find. There you go. You can find it. So go check that stuff out. And that's what I got going on. We'll be back next week with another Daedric Prince. And I think that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We love having you here. stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter at robots_radio or Lotus of Doom at Lotus of Doom. Also, you can join us on the Robots Radio Discord channel. You can easily just search Robots Radio Discord on Google or check the description underneath the podcast. Also, this podcast is recorded live every week on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Robots Radio channels on Twitch, YouTube, and on Facebook. So just search Robots Radio on any of those platforms. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you while we record the show, or before or after. Either way, just come hang out with us. And if you're looking for more information about my shows and the shows on the Robots Radio Network, go to robotsradio.net for all the information about all the shows on the network, including the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where I help both new and existing podcasters to grow their shows, build their audiences, and create the best podcasts they possibly can. All of that at robotsradio.net. We'll see you next time. All right. Yeah, Ben's outfit looked awesome.
Oh, yeah. That thing was wicked cool looking.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Well, my wife and my son have been on vacation this last week. They were up in the Carolinas hanging out at her grandfather's cabin. Her grandfather passed away just like the last year, but he has a cabin up there, and the rest of the family uses it for vacation stuff. So
okay.
They went up and did that while I stayed here and, did stuff I needed to do and continued working and things. So they'll be back tomorrow, which will be nice.
Nice.
I've been batching it up, eating terribly, and, hanging out with my dogs. So
yep, that'll happen. Yeah, I was going to say I'm around. After work tomorrow, we're leaving in the morning. We're heading to the beach for a couple days with basically all of our in-laws. Everybody just kind of rents basically an entire block of a hotel.
Nice.
And then we just, since there's so many of us there, we just chill at the beach. Like people will go out to eat. You're bound to find somebody who wants to go out to eat at the same time you do.
Right. It's nice to go on vacation with a group of people because it feels like your options increase for stuff.
Exactly. And it's like you can do your own thing, or if you want people to do it with, you can group up and do it. So that's kind of, it's a yearly thing we do.
That's cool.
With her family. So yeah.
Then the beaches up in the Northeast are so much. I mean, everyone's like, oh, the beaches in Florida are beautiful and stinking hot and terrible if you like being in a desert.
Yeah.
If that's what you think is nice. I would much rather be on the coastline of the northern US.
Sure.
And I don't know, that kind of environment, or on a boat,
Yep.
I don't want to sit on a freaking desert. That sounds terrible. Anyway, that's just me though. So have fun up there. That sounds
appreciate
cool.
it. And but I'll be back again by midweek, so I shall be back for the next show.
Awesome. All right, chat. Thank you for hanging out. So glad to see you guys. ESO has been awesome. I've been seeing everybody in the chat playing and stuff. I've been meaning to jump in and join you guys again. I just need to find time to do it. And keep it up. I think you guys are doing awesome things for the guild, and I'm sure people are appreciative to have more activities going. So thanks so much for getting that going and being a part of it. Sand is terrible. It gets everywhere.
It does get everywhere. As somebody who loves the beach, sand when you're leaving the beach is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, we're going to start quoting Anakin Skywalker. Anyway, all right. I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.